a.m. on April 19th, 1995. You know, be prepared for all the emotions it might bring back to you. The reflecting tool that runs between the gauge, in a way, kind of marks the minute of 9:02 and the minute of change, because the images it reflects are always changing. One thing that's constant about it, things change forever by terrorists. Geographically, the reflecting tool starts with this street, the street the bomber drove over. All the way through here, from east or west to east, is a one-way street. But the reflecting tool also does one other thing, and that is provide a soothing background for our thoughts. As you stroll about the grounds, you may have noticed a sound like a babbling brook or a creek. Well, that sound is created by the water cascading over the edge of the reflecting pool down into the cistern below. And that was included also purposely by the architect to create just that sound so that we could have that soothing background, that peaceful background for our thoughts as we stroll about here and reflect. South of the reflecting pool is the 168 chairs that mark the 168 lives that were lost that day. That's also where the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building once stood. Each one of those chairs in its glass base contains the name of somebody who died. At night, the glass bases will all light up and send out 168 beacons of light into the darkness, reminding us no matter how dark the night is, there are points of light out there. There's good. And that's what we should focus on. Not the darkness, not the bad. 3 of the chairs, unfortunately, have 2 names in them because there were 3 pregnant women in the building at the time. The chairs themselves are made of bronze, with a polished marble seat, and of course that glass base. The taller chairs represent the adults that died, and the smaller ones the 19 children. The chairs are set up from north to south on a series of 9 rows, with each row representing a floor of the federal building, and so people's chairs are placed on the row that corresponds with the floor they either worked on or were visiting at the time of the attack. The exception of that are the 5 chairs at the far western end, which are for the 5 people who died outside of the building, but as a result of the bombing nonetheless. All of those other chairs are set up in such a way that they mirror that void, the blast cavity created to the building. If you guys remember watching on the news or seeing the pictures in the newspaper, that kind of U shape in the building, that was caused by that bombing, and those chairs are set up to mirror that U, thus filling in the building and making it whole symbolically, just like those memories of those people can help make our hearts whole. To the east of the field of empty chairs stood the only remaining walls from the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building after it was imploded on May 23, 1995. Those walls are what have become what's known as the Survivors Chapel, and in them, hanging on some granite panels, are etched the names of some 600 or so people who were either within the building or within a 2-block radius of the building at the time of the attack, the survivors. I thought it was a fitting tribute to include those walls into this memorial because those walls were survivors. They had seen so much. They'd been through just as much as those people had. They'd seen not only the building in all its glory, but also the attack and the big implosion 4 months later. So they were incorporated as a symbol of the survivors. Another symbol of the survivors, but not just the survivors, but the survival spirit within all of us, is this tree. This nearly 100-year-old tree is the iconic survivor tree at the American Elm. When the bomb went off, as I mentioned before, this tree was in the middle of a 64-car parking lot. In addition to that, it was almost directly across from the bombing. So when that bomb went off, the limbs and leaves were sheared away from the tree. Glass, shrapnel, metal, bits of concrete were blown into it. And some of the cars that were parked here were actually blown up against the car and had their gas tanks ignited. This black bark that you see on the tree now, that's carbon scoring from the fires of that day. That's scarring from terrorism. So just like all of us, just like the family members and survivors, this tree continues to bear the scars of terrorism. We call it the survivor tree because it had seen so much neglect prior to the attack and had been hurt so much by the attack that no one ever thought it would survive. It just been too damaged and been too neglected. But the tree, as you can see now, of course, it proved us all wrong because not only did it survive the attack, but it started to grow again. New greenery appeared on its damaged limbs. So it became a powerful symbol of hope and resiliency for the people of Oklahoma City and our nation in the wake of such a tragedy. So we rallied around it and protected it, just like the rescue workers did for Oklahoma City when they needed it most. And just like all these other trees out here are doing now. These other trees are what's known as the rescuer's orchard. And symbolically, they're charging up the hill to surround and protect the survivor tree, just like the rescue workers did for the people of Oklahoma City. The trees closest to the survivor tree here are the Oklahoma redbuds, and they symbolize the people who came from Oklahoma, the first ones on the scene to help. All of the others are Chinese pistache and Amur maple, and they represent the people who came from the other states to help. Now, all of the trees in the rescuer's orchard are either fruit or flower-bearing trees, because the fruits of the rescue workers' labors were literally those people they got out of the building and their future generations. So along with those pine trees over there, they're a powerful symbol of the continuation of the life cycle here on this site. The final group of people that helped us out in the wake of this attack, in the wake of this tragedy, were some you may not think of. And those are children. Now children, of course, did not help out by going into the building. But what they did was they sent in letters. Letters of hope and caring. Letters of thanks for the rescue workers. And letters of resiliency for everyone else. Those letters and those efforts are remembered today in the children's area that sits in front of the museum. In that area, you'll find some chalkboards laid out on the ground, just like children's letters. So that all children, no matter what their age, can continue to leave those same messages of caring and hope for the city and for themselves. Also in that area is a low curved wall that has hand-printed and hand-painted tiles that came from a project called Helping Hands. The idea being that children could lend their helping hands to the healing process. That project has since ceased to be. However, we still continue to lend our healing hands to this site today by placing our hands in the waters of the reflection pool and then putting our hands on one of these two bronze gates for 3 seconds, thus causing an oxidation process with the bronze and leaving an imprint of our healing hands here for everyone to see. The final element of this site is that fence that runs on the healing side of the 903 gate. Now originally that fence was just that. It was a fence. It surrounded the building at the attack. It was designed to control entry to and exit from the site. But it became more than that. In order to show that they cared about what happened, they were affected by what happened, they would go up to that fence and leave items on it. Teddy bears, wreaths, poems, just anything to show that they cared. In 1998, after groundbreaking, some of the family members, rescue workers, and survivors picked up that section of fence and carried it to where it sits now. To this day, people continue that giving tradition and continue to leave items on it, which is why it's also what we call a living memorial. Every 90 days or so, a section of the fence is cleared off, taken inside the archives of the museum, so those items can be used later in displays or exhibits that the museum is having. Overall, what Hans and Tori and Sven wanted us to get out of this site was a sense of the loss that occurred to us on that day. A loss not just to us as Americans, to our innocence, but a loss to all of us as human beings as a result of terrorism. They also wanted us to get out of this a couple of other things, and one of those is a sense of hope. Because while we may have been hurt on that day, and while that day was certainly dark, just as those chairs, when they light up at night, remind us, there are points of light out there. In this case, 12,000 of them in the form of the rescue workers. And just like the survivor tree reminds us, each one of us has strength inside of us. Each one of us is resilient, and we are capable of coming back from the hurts that are caused to us. We are capable of coming back from any future terrorist attacks. On behalf of the National Park Service and the Oklahoma City National Memorial Foundation, thank you guys very much for listening to me today. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, that's what you guys pay me for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.